Alright, what's up guys? So since I did a video yesterday, it was about movies, or just a movie about the menu, and last time I checked it had about 115 views. So thank you guys a lot for getting it to that many views really quickly. And again, I just wanted to say there's some people saying, oh, bad take, or like, oh, you don't get it, or you don't this, or whatever. I mean, it's one of those things where, again, I have to remind people, this is my opinion, so if you like these movies I'm about to mention, or or if whatever, just whatever you think about them. Like if you think one of them's the best film of that year, that's fine with me. Like I'm not gonna be mad at you. Like you can have your opinion. I just don't in the nice way be like, oh, this is what I think of the movie, but your opinion's cool too. Like a lot of the time, people usually just tell me like how wrong I am, and this is the right opinion, and this is the only opinion. That's what they like to tell me. But it's also been a while since I have done a top list. It's just gonna be like I had the playlist set as top tens. We're gonna do like top fives for a little while, and maybe I'll do more movie stuff. Got a couple more movies I was thinking about reviewing, talking about, and maybe later I'll do top five movie sequels that are better than the original. So yes, sequels. Something that a lot of people like to make, especially when their film does really good, then like the only thing next would be a sequel. And a lot of the time, sequels either really suck or they're really good. Um, some of the time the sequels suck just because they sort of rehash the same plot, which rehash just means reuse, or other times they just give it like a weird, bizarre plot, or sometimes they just take all the things that you love from the first one and just throw them in the toilet. You know, that happens a lot of the time. And also, sometimes they don't even use the same actors, which just makes it like, this is why I like this movie, you know, like because of the actors. You know, when you take completely different people that nobody knows, and I mean, it's going to be different. So number five, we have obviously, you know, my shirt. I wear it in a lot of these videos. People think I don't wash it, but I mean, I do. It's just one of my favorite sweatshirts. Is SpongeBob 2, Sponge Out of Water. So the SpongeBob movie was awesome. It was probably a really good way to almost wrap up the series in a way. If they decided to stop after the movie, then I would have been completely fine with it because all the other episodes after season four essentially is what I like to call the shit Bob era. And the shit Bob era is basically where all the other episodes, most of them, about 90% of them suck. There were sometimes every once in a while I could pick out a good gem in some seasons, like season six, which is probably the worst of all. Had sandcastles in the sand. I like that one a lot. Season eight had the Planet of the Jellians. It was like a whole body snatchers thing. I really like that one a lot. But basically, the second SpongeBob movie, it sort of takes a lot of things from the first one, like going to the surface world is something they do. Interacting with humans, something they do. The formula getting stolen again, something they do. You know, and it's just a lot of stuff that was in the first one is stuff that they use for the sequel and all that. So the sequel, basically, what happens is there was this guy. His name was like the Beard Burger Man or something like that, or like Captain Beard or something. And he had these seagulls that were his friend, and they were really, really obnoxious. And one thing I'm gonna say is I don't despise this film. It's just one of the things that I would rather watch SpongeBob the movie one over. And another thing I'm gonna say with sequels is it doesn't have to immediately be part two. It could be like part 12. You know, I just consider sequel anything after the first movie. But anyway, going on. So they had these sequels that were really not sequels. I just said that seagulls that were really annoying. Hey, talk like this. It was really annoying. It was like a 5-year-old trying to be cool on Call of Duty and be like, hey, look at me. I'm a fucking got immense voice talent and all that. So basically, yeah, it was just kind of annoying with that, and just the plot was the same. Like the burger guy, he stole the formula so he could make his own Krabby Patties and all that. And I mean, it's didn't have all bad parts. There was a part where like a rap song with this rapping dolphin that was really interesting, and I think Plankton and SpongeBob working together was kind of interesting at one point. Time machine part was kind of interesting. I remember one of my favorite parts is when they go forward in time because after the formula is stolen, like everything becomes all apocalyptic or whatever, and basically they go back forward in time from that, and it's like the Krusty Krab's gone and everything's dusty, and Patrick's got a long beard, and they're like, "How long's it been? Like 15 years?" And Patrick's like, "Oh, it's like been like 3 days." That was funny. So Plankton also not even being able to understand how what teamwork is. He kept saying TM. That was sort of funny. But yeah, I don't hate this film, which is kind of why it's so low on the list. It's only number five. So next one we're gonna mention is Bad Santa 2. First Bad Santa is probably one of my favorite Christmas comedy action movies of all time. I really like it. If you don't know, in the first movie, what happens is it basically stars these two guys, Marcus and Willie, and Marcus is a midget who plays an elf, and Willie is a Santa Claus. And Willie is kind of a drunk and a jerk, and it's just kind of funny sometimes. Some of the jokes that were really funny in there was like a part where, um, you know, there was the guy, he ends up meeting a little kid named like Thurman. His last name Thurman Merman. It's not all that funny, like not super funny, but the first time I heard it, I pretty much I kind of got a good laugh out of it for a little bit. And it's just kind of funny. The kid in this movie, he's got a really calm, like reserved demeanor and doesn't talk all that much. And when he does, it's always something funny. Like one of my favorite parts of it is when him and Willie are playing checkers, and he like flips the board, and then he gets all mad because he said that the kid was cheating, and he's just like, "You want to play again?" He just has a real calm, reserved demeanor. It's just really funny. And another joke was when like Willie had sex with this one girl, who the guy was saying like, "That's my girlfriend. You can't do anything," and the guy was like, "What are you, off your meds?" And he's like, "Yes, but that's not the point." But basically, what they do is he plays the Santa Claus and Marcus plays the elf. And funny fun fact, they actually have the girl who plays Min from King of the Hill in that movie. He plays Marcus's girlfriend. But anyways, basically what they do is they pose as a Santa Claus and an elf every year at a mall, and then at the end of the year they end up robbing the money bank that they have. So they're basically like robbers in a way, just posing as a Santa Claus and an elf and just doing all kinds of stuff. And it's got a lot of cool action bits, got a lot of comedy bits, and everything. And that was why I liked it a lot. It just has some really good moments in it, and it just made me laugh a lot. It's one of the movies I quote sometimes with people, and it's pretty much just like not overly dirty, but it's dirty enough where you can get a laugh out of it if that's your kind of movie. Excuse me, I got hiccups or something. And then at the end, there was a moment I didn't expect. The Marcus guy, he ends up betraying Willie, and he's going to shoot him, and then Willie gets shot by police officers. Well, even though he was a jerk and a dick and an alcoholic, he still cares about that Thurman kid, and he almost becomes like the father he never had and everything, because the kid just lives with his grandma, and she's crazy and everything. So basically, then with that, he ends up like getting him a pink stuffed elephant or whatever he wanted. And even though you think that he dies at the end of the movie, he's just in the hospital and everything, and he's able to get him that stuffed animal even if he died. And I just thought that was a really nice moment. But then Bad Santa 2, it kind of just takes the same plot and just like rehashes it again. And Willie's mom is in the movie; she's kind of annoying, but there were a couple funny moments where one kid was like, he was like, "Oh, I want Assassin's Creed, GTA 5. I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, kids." So it did have some funny moments, but I don't really think it deserved like a 30% like the critics gave it. I think it's like a 6 out of 10 movie. The other one's like an 8 out of 9, 8 or 9 out of 10 movie. And the plot is just kind of the same. They're going to rob the store again, and like, I was sort of expecting, oh, Marcus and Willie team up, and I was just sort of expecting, like, oh, he's probably going to betray him again, and that's pretty much what he does. He tries to betray him again, and it's just not really something that I expected, because, I mean, when it happens in the first movie, you sort of almost expect it again, and it's just not really a joke that works twice very well, just because it's completely different. But you can do jokes twice sometimes. Running jokes can be funny if it's just not something that you're going to expect. For example, in the movie Raising Arizona, there's a part where basically in that movie, like these criminals steal a baby, and then the guy who who used to work with the criminals, like his criminal buddies betray him in a way after finding out that if they bring back the baby to the owner, he's going to give him a big chunk of change. So basically, then they're trying to get the baby back, and they rob a bank and everything. They put the baby on top of the car, and then they forget about him, and then they scream for like a solid minute, and that was really funny. And then the first time I saw it, I was thinking, imagine they did that again. It would probably be even funnier. And they did do it again, so it was really funny, just kind of because I was half expecting it, half not. But in the other movie, I was just totally expecting it, so it really wasn't a good payoff and everything. The Thurman guy, he's back in this movie, but he's really annoying. He just never shuts the fuck up. Like, he never stops talking. He's just talking about stupid stuff. But I mean, there was a couple other jokes I thought were kind of funny. One part where he takes him to like, home in a way or whatever, and basically he ends up finding like, oh, he's like, oh, it's just a nice place except for this guy jacking off. And that guy watching him jack off, so that was kind of funny. Then there's this other lady who has the keys to one of the things they're trying to get access to, and the Marcus guy takes her out on a date, and he's trying to be real nice to her, and she just ends up not having sex with him or whatever. And then like he was saying like I'm gonna treat you're a classy girl. I'm gonna try to treat you right. And then some guy just comes up, slaps her on the ass. So that was kind of funny. And then she was also swiping on Tinder once. I was like, oh, this guy's no teeth. That's kind of odd. I thought that was pretty funny in a way. Just some stuff you don't expect. But it's again like it's why it's only number four because it's not a terrible movie. It's just like an almost subpar average movie for me. Just not a terrible 3 out of 10 movie like they said. All right, so next is Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. In my opinion, I think that Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Last Crusade, and Temple of Doom, and also Last Crusade having the word last. I hate when films do that. They did that too in Friday the 13th 4, where they said like the last, the final chapter, and then they ended up making 10 of them. And after 4, people were just saying it's bad because the fifth one. I haven't even seen these movies by the way. The fifth one's not even the same guy. But anyway, moving on. Crystal Skull, I didn't think it was very good at all. I thought it was boring, and a lot of it was toned down because the second one or the third one came out in 1988, and the fourth one didn't come out till 2008. Like Harrison Ford was old; he was in his 60s, and he was getting pretty old. So that was why there were so many parts that were dumbed down, and it was like there wasn't as many stunts and stuff because he couldn't really do physical stuff as much. But I mean, there were some decent parts in this movie, like him surviving a nuclear explosion in a fridge made every single person on the planet Earth wonder if it's actually possible, but they're not going to try it out. But it just seemed kind of stupid, and the main villain wasn't very good either. You probably didn't even know her name. I had to Google it. The Russian lady, her name was like Spaleko or Spalko or something like that. She wasn't even all that good, and but I mean, since she was annoying, I'm glad she died at the end because she ends up meeting the Crystal Skull alien and everything. And basically, they just have the Crystal Skull, and if you put the Crystal Skull in a specific temple part, then you basically get like a free wish. So she got her free wish, and she wanted to know all the knowledge in the world, and their head exploded because I guess it was too much. Like, what'd you expect? It's like blowing up a balloon, and then it blows up too much. Like, I don't think it pop. It's just goofy. Harrison Ford just almost seemed like he didn't even want to be there most of the time, and yeah, the other guy who secretly turned out to be his son was named Mutt. He wasn't very good either, and Marion comes back in this movie as well. I feel like it's one of those moments where they're just like, "Hey, remember her?" And they do that in the fifth one too. She just comes up and is like, doesn't really need to be there. There's stuff that doesn't really need to be there and all that. And it was something I was really excited about when it came out. I was like, Indiana Jones 4, that's awesome! Like, because I had played the Lego video game and I was like, Crystal Skull was the best. Like I like that part. It was annoying when they split into 3 chapters, but anyway, that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the Lego game. But yeah, just a lot of the parts I didn't like about it, you know, and it was just another thing that just after a while, sometimes that's why people say third time's a charm. Like usually, if you make 3 good movies in a row and then you make a fourth one, it's gonna suck. So number two is basically the same case, where the Diary of Wimpy Kid trilogy is a really good trilogy, and a lot of my friends love it. And we would quote it sometimes, and it just really encapsulated the books in a good way. It was Diary of Wimpy Kid 1, Diary of Wimpy Kid 2, Roger Rules, and then Diary of Wimpy Kid 3, The Last Straw, and Dog Days are put together, and the film is called Dog Days. Like they have some parts from both movies. It was really good to watch. It basically encapsulated the series just about as good as it could have been, and like it basically wraps it up with a nice little bow. Like Holly Hills finally falls in love with Greg Heffley, even though she never did that in the books. But hey, I mean, like we all were rooting for him in the end. But then part four is basically where one of the things I didn't like. They replaced all the actors that were actually good with actors that weren't. For some reason, they made all the characters like 10 years old or something, even though Greg's supposed to be like 11 or 12. Maybe the character was actually older, but just looks younger. That happens a lot sometimes. For a while, I didn't know that Dustin from Stranger Things was pretty much my age. I thought he was like 14. But anyways, I don't know how old the actors were, but they just weren't very good. And I don't even remember all the actors' actual names. But the mom and dad weren't all that good. Rowley wasn't very good. Roderick sucked. He was the worst part of that movie because in a way, Roderick was stupid, but he was also smart. Like he was a smart idiot in a way because one of the things that he did was he kind of made everybody think he was really stupid for a long time when he actually was, like he had street smarts, not school smarts. He almost had four-dimensional thinking in a way because one of the things he would do was he would pretend like, oh, I don't know what I'm typing, so that his dad would like type all his reports for him and everything, and then he was like, oh, I got an A plus, and he pretended he did it himself. And another thing he did was like lower mom and dad's expectations. The reason why this movie's called Roderick Rules is because he kind of shows Greg his own rules and everything, like how to get away with this, and that. And basically, one of the things he did was he was like, oh, always lower mom and dad's expectations so that they can basically just you do the smallest little thing and they're proud of him. Like one of the things Greg did, with that was like, hey, I got my math test back, and I'm pretty sure I got an F. And his parents were like, oh, Greg, go try better. And he's like, hey, but a C plus, and they're like, well, I guess you didn't fail. So it's like one of those things. Roger in the book, I remember he would do something like, oh, his parents would be like, I want you to move your underwear by the time I get home, and he would do like the smallest little thing, and his dad would be like, oh, good job. And another thing he did was like, you can make sure that to not have to do a job if you trick somebody into thinking you're so stupid you can't do it. I actually knew a couple people, and myself, I tried that once or twice at a job, and it actually sort of worked. So I mean, like, hey, Roderick's a genius. He's not as stupid as people think. But in long haul, they replaced him with somebody who was just basically a dumbass, like a fucking dumbass. Like Roderick is stupid in a way, but like I said, he's also smart. He's got street smarts, not school smarts. Like he's not as dumb as a bag of rocks. Like this guy, Charlie Wright, I think, like, I've never met the guy and I'm sure he's cool, but sometimes, like, they give actors just bad roles and they can't do it for the life of them. You know, he didn't even look like Roger either. He had, like, a weird ass haircut, but I mean, some people were like, oh, it looks like a rock and roll drummer. I'm like, never seen a rock and roll drummer like that. But anyway, yeah, basically he just was not a good Roderick, and he was just really stupid and just like said stuff to Greg like El Dorco, and just some of the stuff I was like, Roderick would never do that. Like Roderick's smarter than he seems. Like he's not going to do a stupid ass thing. Like I don't even know. Just some of the stupid stuff he did just wasn't good. And I mean, it sort of followed the book, but not really. I didn't even like the long haul book that much anyway. After like book 7 or 6 is when they just started to get boring, and after a while I just stopped reading Wimpy Kid altogether. They're on like book 15 by now, probably. Like I know the newest one came out in November, whatever it's even called. I don't even care. Whatever it's called, like I'm sure it's just Jeff Kinney just didn't even care. He's probably a millionaire, billionaire at this point. Like he doesn't care. He could write just subpar books, and then all the 10-year-old Wimpy Kid stands are like, "We love you, Jeff Kinney,". But then number one is a movie that I really liked. The sequel was just terrible. Dumb and Dumber is another film that I really loved, and it's one of my favorites. Like, I mean, I know Jim Carrey can be annoying, and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I turned that on, and I stopped watching it within 5 minutes after he made his butt talk. The only reason I actually wanted to watch Ace Ventura is because Cannibal Corpse is in the movie, only for like 2 minutes. But I mean, that's probably just the best part. But essentially, Dumb and Dumber, if you don't know the story, what happens is Lloyd's a cab driver and he takes this lady to a airport, and she basically drops her briefcase. It turns out she owes like these gangsters money or something, and he brings the briefcase back to her and then spends all her money. So basically, that's just kind of what happens and everything. They just go on an adventure, just hijinks ensue. They just do stupid stuff, accidentally kill a person, and everybody's like, oh, these guys are highly trained because at one point, one guy thinks, oh, he knows I have gas because they think that the gas man is like coming to their house or whatever. So because they didn't pay their rent, so that's who he thinks those people are, and they're like, this guy must be following us for weeks. They must be really smart when they're literally idiots who don't know what they're doing. And I mean, like Jim Carrey's cool, I guess. Like he's been in some movies that I'm like he was really great in them, and other movies I'm just like they could have made him try harder, But essentially, after that Dumb and Dumber 2 is almost the same. It sort of has the same plot. They starring Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey again, but this time they're a lot older. This one came out like 20 years later, I think. I hate when films do that. They'll come out like 15 years later and all the actors look super old, and you're like, okay, these don't even look like the same people anymore. They aged a ton. And basically, the second movie just is sort of the same. It starts off with a joke that I sort of thought was funny. And I think this one is kind of bad. It has a few hit jokes, but like in 80% of them miss. There were some funny jokes. Like I said, there was one where it turned out that after the Mary girl, who was Lloyd was trying to fall in love with, basically she actually had a husband and everything. So it turned out the whole time he almost did it for nothing. Mr. Simp, simping before simping was a term. First simp that we've ever seen back in the 90s. But anyway, yeah, he found out that she actually had a husband. So in the second movie, he becomes depressed for like 20 years, I guess, and he doesn't even cut his hair. And it turns out he was actually just pranking Harry the whole time. So that was kind of funny. And I remember he's like, "You pretended that you were in a coma, or you pretended that you were brain dead for 20 years." He's like, "Yup." He goes, "That's the best prank ever." It's just got some funny moments in it, and it's just some parts that made me laugh, and there were other parts that made me laugh too. And it basically has the same plot. They basically travel across the USA, because he ends up finding a girl that he sort of wants to. He ends up finding out about a girl that he ends up wanting to, meet and everything. And then it turns out he falls in love with her. And this one has ended up being weird because he thought that the whole time this girl was his daughter, even though he wasn't, because Lloyd has no idea how to have sex. Like, it had some funny parts where the girl that he supposedly had sex with was like, "I took in like hundreds of guys down there. What do you mean?" And he was like, "I remember playing with your tits and they got pretty hard." And he's like, "That's not how you make a baby." And she's also like, "Yeah, putting a frilly condom on your finger and making it dance is also not how you make a baby." I'm surprised this guy knows what condoms are, because in one point of the film, he's like, "I got some protection," and he puts on like a fucking helmet. So I mean, that's kind of funny, I guess. But yeah, there were some other funny jokes. One of them was like, they thought that Harry was super smart or whatever, and somebody's like, "Does he have Asperger's?" He's like, "Yeah, probably. He doesn't wipe all that well." Another part that was like weird, where he like fingered an old lady's vagina. That's nasty. It wasn't funny. It was just gross. Um, and everything was just pretty weird. And another scene was kind of funny. They scratched their asses, put it in the beer and stuff, just so they get free ones. And the lady was like, "That smells terrible." It had some funny moments, but again, it was just like sequel syndrome, where they do it 10, 15, 20 years later. It just ends up sucking. So basically, yeah, I didn't really like Dumb and Dumber 2 a lot at all. And it turns out that girl's not even his daughter, and he just wasted his time there. I guess at one point I almost thought he was, because they were actually related, because she did something similar to what he did. Like, he pushed people into bushes, and she does the same thing, I guess. But yeah, they didn't even really look anything alike, except maybe having the same hair color. But I mean, yeah, just it's they're not related at all. It turns out she was related to somebody else that was her real father. She wasn't related to Harry either. He thought that she was the father at one point. I guess neither of them were the father. Whatever that show is, "You are not the father." I mean, I don't know, whatever it's called, but I just remember hearing about that. But yeah, anyways, basically those are top 5 films that I think, excuse me, that I think the sequels really suck way better than the originals. I mean, the sequels aren't as good as the originals, and maybe if you guys really like this one, I'll do another top 5, talking about top 5 or top 10, however many I think of movie sequels that are better than the originals. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and more movie reviews to come. I'll see you guys next time.